By the end of this video, you're going to be armed with 7 ways to recognize and stop manipulation and gaslighting. My name is Christina, and this channel is dedicated to helping you recognize and overcome the effects of emotional abuse. So if that's something that's touched your life, consider subscribing. You'll find a whole lot more helpful content here. And if you think you're dealing with gaslighting and manipulation in your life currently, I have a download that can help you figure that out. So first, let's talk about manipulation and gaslighting. So there's a lot of confusion about what gaslighting is, and especially as it relates to manipulation. Some people think gaslighting is just lying. And while gaslighting does include lying, there's more to it than that. So gaslighting is a form of manipulation, but gaslighting is a specific type of manipulation where the abusive person is trying to get you to doubt yourself and your perception of reality. So the first way to recognize that someone is manipulating you is that they make you feel like you have no options, even when there are options. And we can look at a really simple example of the car salesman. So you go to buy a car and they're really pushing you towards this one. Like, yeah, sure, there are other cars on the lot, but this one is so far beyond. It blows the others out of the water. Like, you would be stupid if you bought any of the other ones. But this often happens in interpersonal relationships too. So imagine you're going on a first date with someone and you don't want them to come pick you up, but they insist and they act as though there is no other way, and they won't quite let it go. Usually this early, this is a red flag that most of us will notice and will walk away. But that's just an example of how this shows up. And I'm sure you can think of so many more examples of how this might have showed up in your relationship throughout the relationship. So someone might insist that you do something for them and they don't let it go. Someone might use emotional blackmail and say something like, if you loved me, you would do this for me. And it has to be this one very specific thing. So once you recognize it, what do? How do you handle it? One response that works is just being blunt and saying, no, thank you. Another thing you might say is, what other choices do we have? Is there something else that we can do? Because this is a no. If they react to your simple responses in anger, or if they react with an ultimatum, or if they just persist and double down and just act like this is the only option when it's clearly not, this person is absolutely trying to manipulate you. And I want to be very clear. Your intentions behind this response are not ever going to be to get this person to admit what they're doing or to get this person to see the error of their ways. They're going to be who they are, and that's it. The purpose behind standing up for yourself and maybe asking them for other options is to see what their true intent is, if you don't already know it. Because then you can do with that what you will. So the next way to recognize manipulation and gaslighting is to look for someone who is stating their opinions as facts. Oh my goodness, so many people do this, don't they? But if they're stating their opinions as facts and they have something to gain and you have something to lose, there is clear manipulation going on here. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're looking to do something new and you're talking to this narcissistic person in your life and they say something like, we both know you're not cut out for that, don't we? Now, this is a very damaging and deflating response, but it is opinion. Make no mistake about it. It is opinion. It is not fact. There is no fact that says you're not cut out for it. You may also believe it on some level, and so when they lump you into that thought, to that opinion, you may even take it on as your own when you didn't have it before. Because if you were trying for it, you didn't believe that you weren't cut out for it. But now you do. So how can we respond to this one to get the other person to show their true intent? Simply ask them, is that opinion or is it fact? And they may say it's fact, right? And here's where we can get caught up. Again, I want to remind you, this is not about getting the other person to see that they were wrong. They're not going to unless their true intent was not to manipulate you. They may have said something out of line and realized how harsh that was, and they might backpedal a little bit if they're not trying to manipulate you. And I'll add to that if you see a pattern of this happening, if you're always calling them out and they're always saying stuff like this, they're also manipulating you. They're just not really having much of a backbone about it. But again, if you're dealing with a narcissist, if you're dealing with anyone who's trying to manipulate you or gaslight you, they might get angry that you would dare question them, that you would dare question whether that was opinion or fact, that you would even push back in any way. And if somebody gets angry to any simple response that you have, they probably don't have your best intentions at heart. And in this specific situation, they're trying to manipulate you. So the next way to recognize manipulation and gaslighting is to look for someone who is really intent on telling you what you think, what you feel, and what sort of mental state you're in. So I know we've all dealt with this on some level. Somebody might say something like, "It's okay, I know you're confused." Or, "Oh, you look tired, we should leave." And again, let's bring this back to the root of manipulation and gaslighting. And that is, you have something to lose, they have something to gain. So someone might say something like, "Oh, you look tired, let's leave," because they care about your feelings. But if you're not actually tired and they have reasons to want to leave, they're trying to manipulate you into believing that you actually want to leave. Now, that's certainly far from the most damaging way that this can play out, but it's an example. And I wanted to use a simple example to illustrate this because this technique actually works. When you say something to someone about their mental state, about their emotional state, about what they think or believe, it really can plant a seed. So one way you can respond to get the person to show their true colors is to set the record straight and to ask them why they would think something like that. "I'm not even tired at all. Why would you think something like that?" Or, I'm not angry. Why would you think something like that? Do not let someone else tell you how you think, how you feel. Don't let it get in your head. Don't even entertain it. But if they double down in response to your question and they continue to tell you how you're thinking or feeling or what your mental state is, what your emotional state is, that's a major red flag. They are absolutely trying to manipulate you, because who is the authority on what you think, feel, believe? It's you. So the next sign that someone is trying to manipulate you or gaslight you is that they will use triangulation to put you down. So they will make you think that other people have negative opinions of you. They might say, "Oh yeah, well, you know what? Everyone thinks you're crazy anyway, so no one's going to believe you." Or everyone thinks you're controlling, so they're going to know that I'm the real victim here. So really the best way to counter this is with proof that they're wrong. So whatever it is that they're saying, let them know that other people say the exact opposite about you. And really, if somebody is saying something like this to you to make you feel bad about yourself, they probably already know what they're doing and they're probably doing it on purpose. So let's just run with that assumption straight off the bat. And so if somebody's coming at you with this type of triangulation and you call them on it, they're probably going to just double down. And they're going to ask you, they're going to try and pick apart your story, and they're going to act like you're lying. They might even accuse you of lying. And it's really important at this point to just leave it there. Don't give them names. Don't tell them who might say these things or who might have said these things, because then they will just pick that apart and it will become a whole argument that they're going to try to win. It's always best to engage as little as possible whenever possible. So if you encounter something like this, really even the better response is nothing. If you can walk away from this person, that is really the best response. So the next way to recognize if someone is manipulating you or gaslighting you is that they're trying to imprint false memories. And this has to do with suggestibility. And this one's really dangerous. And part of the reason why it's so dangerous is because it seems so harmless. And it may show up as something that you just don't remember. It might be a whole elaborate story that you just don't remember happening, but apparently you were there. There's actually a lot of science behind how this works and how effective this is. And scientists have studied this in so many different ways, from using fake memories to stop people from eating certain foods, to implanting false childhood memories of people riding in a hot air balloon. And it works. So your head might be spinning about all the different ways that an abusive person can use the power of suggestibility against you. And yes, it is very dangerous if you give that power to someone else. And unfortunately, sometimes we give that power away without even realizing it because we trust someone else. And little by little, they eat away at our sense of what is real. So an abusive parent might start talking about a memory of something that actually never happened. And they might do this for a number of different ways. Because if they remember it and you don't, then they're the authority. Then they have control. They might bring up this false memory to distract you from something else, or to get you to forget or question something that actually did happen. And someone who's really maliciously gaslighting you might do it just so that you question yourself. And imagine how it might feel if you start to buy into this false memory, and then comes the rug pull. A very malicious gaslighter might say that it never happened at all. They might say that you were the one who made it up. So this one is really dangerous. We've never talked about it before on this channel, but it's extremely important. If someone is trying to get you to remember something that you do not remember, it does not mean that they're gaslighting you. It doesn't mean that they're lying. But there's one thing you can do to protect yourself. And that one thing, we're going to dig deeper into it, but it is to pay attention. And there are 4 things that you're going to want to pay attention to. So first, pay attention to the details of the story. Does it sound believable? Does the story change every time this person tells it? Next, pay attention to the person's motivations. Do they have something to gain from you believing this story? Sorry, that was still number 2. Third, pay attention to what your gut is telling you. When this person is telling you this story, does it sound believable? Does it feel like something's off? Because if it feels like something's off, there probably is something off. So even if you don't know what their motivations are, pay attention to your gut. So if you found these tips helpful, I want to let you know that they do go hand in hand with the 5 gaslighting red flags that you need to look for in any new relationship. And you can check those out right here.